In the beginning of the movie, we see a sweet little girl who is almost 10 years old. Her name is Sophie, and she lives in an orphanage because her parents have died. Sophie suffers from insomnia, which prevents her from sleeping at night, so she spends the whole night walking around the orphanage. Like every child, she also has a fear that there is an old man who comes in the darkness of night and kidnaps children, then eats them after killing them. One night, when everyone is asleep, she hears a cat's noise near the window. Since she can't sleep, she goes to check it out. When she reaches the balcony, she sees that some cats have knocked over a dustbin. Suddenly, she sees a giant picking up the dustbin and putting it back in place. Then a very large giant emerges from behind the building. Sophie and the giant see each other. She gets scared and quickly returns to her bed, but the giant reaches inside through the window, picks her up, and takes her with him. The giant does not appear in front of humans, and when a human crosses his path, he hides himself somehow. He takes Sophie with him to another world, which is the world of giants. Sophie notices that this is a very large house, and everything in it is as large as the giants. Sophie tries to escape, but the giant tells her that there is no way to leave this place, so she cannot go anywhere. Hearing this, Sophie becomes even more scared. She notices that this giant is old. The giant places Sophie on a pan and says he is very hungry, so hungry that he can't control himself. Sophie thinks the giant is going to eat her. She hears the laughter of other giants and asks the old giant if there are more giants around. The old giant says yes, there are many giants here, and they are all cannibals, meaning they eat humans raw without any mercy. They devour any human they catch. Hearing this, Sophie becomes even more frightened. She asks the old giant, "Will you eat me too?" The old giant replies, "No, I don't eat humans because I am a vegetarian giant, not a cannibal." This old giant only eats vegetables, which don't taste good at all, but despite that, he doesn't want to eat humans. This shows that he is a kind-hearted giant. Sophie asks him, "If you don't eat humans, then why did you bring me here?" The old giant replies, "Because you saw me. If you told anyone about me, my life would be in danger, and humans would find out about us. They would come here and cause trouble for the other giants. That's why I had to bring you here, and now you will have to live with me for the rest of your life." Sophie says, "No, I will escape from here." The old giant warns her not to try because the other giants will show no mercy to her. The old giant places Sophie on a bed and tells her to rest for a while. But Sophie can't sleep, so she notices that the giant is pulling out large bottles from his bag. These bottles contain something that is glowing. Sophie asks the giant, "What's inside these bottles?" The giant replies, "They contain dreams." Sophie says, "Well, they are of no use to me because I never have dreams, and how could I? I can't even sleep." The giant then starts reading the book Sophie had with her. This book contains stories, and as the giant reads them, Sophie falls asleep. After this, the old giant takes one of the bottles and pulls out a dream. At that moment, Sophie wakes up and sees the old giant still sleeping. She seizes the opportunity to escape from the house. But as soon as she tries to run away, another giant, much larger than the old one, catches her. Sophie pleads with the giant to let her go, but he doesn't listen and swallows her whole. Suddenly, Sophie wakes up. It was all just a dream. Sophie confronts the old giant and says, "I know you did this. You made me dream, even though I never dream." The giant replies, "Yes, I had to do it to show you how dangerous it is out there. It's safer for you to stay here." The old giant explains that the other giants are much larger than him and that he is small and old compared to them. As they talk, a giant, much larger than the old giant, enters the house. This giant asks the old one who he was talking to. The old giant, who the others call Bona because he is the smallest, denies talking to anyone. Meanwhile, Sophie hides. The larger giant had hurt his hand, so he came to the old giant for help with a bandage. Being a cannibal, the large giant smells a human scent in the house. He starts inspecting everything. Sophie hides inside the vegetables that the old giant eats. The large giant smells the vegetables and senses a human scent. But since he has never eaten vegetables before, he finds the smell appealing and starts to eat them. The old giant quickly stops him and reminds him that he doesn't eat vegetables. Realizing this, the large giant throws the vegetables away, saving Sophie's life. The giant then leaves. Later, the old giant has to go somewhere, and Sophie asks him where he is going. The old giant says he's going to catch dreams. Sophie insists on going with him, but the giant refuses, fearing for her safety if the other giant saw her. However, Sophie persists, and the giant finally agrees. When they step outside, they see all the giants are fast asleep. The two try to pass through quietly, but suddenly the giants wake up and start troubling the old giant. The other giants don't want him to go to the human world because they fear that if humans find out about them, their lives will be in danger. Taking advantage of the situation, Sophie hides in the giant's vehicle. The old giant distracts the other giants by pointing to the sky, saying that it's about to rain. The giants are afraid of water because they have water phobia. As it starts to rain, the giants scatter, and the old giant and Sophie escape. They climb up a mountain and reach a place higher than the clouds. Sophie marvels at how beautiful the stars look from there, and the old giant says he can also hear their music. He tells her that he can hear the sounds of everything in the world, even the stories of trees and the voices of ants. Finally, they reach a lake with a beautiful tree beside it. The old giant jumps into the water and Sophie follows. They swim across the lake and reach the world of dreams, where dreams fall like droplets from the sky. They collect both good and bad dreams, and then they return. By now, Sophie and the old giant have become good friends, sharing stories and happiness. The giant tells Sophie that although the other giants call him Bona, he once had a friend who called him the Big Friendly Giant. Hearing this, Sophie says, "From now on, I'll also call you BFG." The BFG and Sophie then visit the city and spread good dreams to children sleeping in their homes. The BFG brings happiness to people's lives, even if only in their dreams. Sophie asks the giant if his parents told him about dreams, but the BFG replies that giants don't have parents. Sophie then asks how old the BFG is, to which he replies that he is as old as the world itself. When they return, Sophie realizes she's left her blanket in the world of giants, which worries the BFG because the giants might discover Sophie's scent. The BFG tells Sophie that years ago he had found another child, just as innocent and sweet as she was. That child had taught him how to read, and the jacket Sophie was wearing belonged to that child. However, before the BFG could return the child to his world, it was too late. The BFG doesn't want the same fate to befall Sophie, as she is also his friend. Despite Sophie's protests, the BFG decides to leave her in the orphanage and go. However, Sophie doesn't want to stay there, so she jumps from the balcony, knowing that the BFG will catch her. And he does. Reluctantly, the BFG agrees to take her back to the giant world. When they return, the other giants are already waiting for them, knowing there is a human among them. They start searching the BFG's house for Sophie, but the BFG burns her blanket to get rid of her scent. Sophie comes up with a plan and tells the BFG to create a dream for the queen. In the dream, he should show the queen the dangerous world of giants, where the giants eat children. Sophie and the BFG include themselves in the dream so that when they meet the queen, she will recognize them. Following Sophie's suggestion, the BFG creates the dream, and they go to the queen's palace and send the dream to her while she is sleeping. In the dream, the queen sees everything that the BFG wanted her to see. When the queen wakes up, she is terrified, realizing it wasn't just a dream. Her caretaker reassures her that it was only a nightmare, but when she reads the newspaper, she finds out that many children went missing last night, just as she had seen in her dream. She orders her curtains to be opened, and standing by the window is Sophie, just as she had seen in her dream. Sophie tells the queen about the BFG and asks her to promise not to harm him. The BFG steps forward and bows respectfully to the queen, who keeps her promise to protect him. After that, the queen welcomes them warmly. Then she also takes care of them. However, she wants to ensure that other giants cannot harm any children. For that, she takes BFG's help. Together, they create a plan to stop the giants from eating children. BFG, with his strong will and courage, helps the princess's army to capture the giants. They are trapped in a huge pit, ensuring they can no longer harm anyone. Finally, Sophie realizes that she has found a real friend in BFG, a giant who has always been misunderstood because of his kindness. BFG becomes a hero, and Sophie continues to live a happy and peaceful life. The story teaches us that even the smallest person can make the biggest difference when they are brave and kind-hearted.